moves through darkness like a vessel between worlds, its silver body cutting through the velvet night with purposeful rhythm, wheels singing their ancient song against steel rails, a percussion that speaks of distance conquered, of destinations approaching, of the particular magic that happens when people allow themselves to be carried forward into uncertainty, into possibility, into the suspended time that exists between departure and arrival. Outside the windows, the world has transformed into impressionist painting, fields reduced to suggestion, mountains existing only as darker shapes against a dark sky, farmhouse lights scattered like fallen stars, each one representing lives in motion, stories unfolding, people choosing rest or wakefulness, solitude or connection, the eternal human dance between safety and adventure, between the known and the mysterious. Inside this moving sanctuary, soft lighting creates intimate atmosphere, warm yellow pools of illumination that make every surface glow, every face appear more beautiful, every conversation feel more significant than it might in harsh daylight, in stationary settings, in places where time moves at ordinary speed rather than this fluid, dreamlike pace that trains create, that allows strangers to become something more, allows casual encounters to develop into profound connections, allows the normal rules of social interaction to bend, to soften, to make room for magic. Steam rises from the train's undercarriage, ghostly wisps that catch platform lighting and transform practical machinery into something ethereal, something that suggests transformation, suggests the boundary between ordinary world and the special realm that exists within moving vehicles, within shared journeys, within the particular intimacy that develops when people agree to travel together toward unknown destinations, unknown possibilities, unknown versions of themselves that emerge only when familiar contexts fall away. The platform bustles with pre-departure energy, suitcases rolling across concrete, voices calling final farewells, the controlled chaos that precedes all journeys, all adventures, all moments when people step away from established routines toward something that cannot be fully predicted, fully controlled, fully prepared for through advanced planning. Through this organized confusion, two figures move with different energies, different approaches to the adventure ahead, different expectations about what this night might bring. The train itself breathes like a living thing, settling into readiness for the long journey ahead, metal expanding and contracting with temperature changes, mechanical systems humming their preparatory songs, creating the complex symphony that experienced travelers recognize, that speaks of reliability, of powerful engines ready to pull them through the night, of wheels prepared to sing their rhythmic lullaby for hundreds of miles, for countless hours, for the entire duration of this suspended time, when normal life pauses and travel life begins. Footsteps approach across the platform, measured, purposeful, belonging to someone who travels with intention, rather than mere wanderlust. Evelyn emerges from the crowd carrying the particular kind of luggage that tells stories, leather satchel worn soft from years of carrying precious cargo, papers and novels, research and escape, the tools of someone who understands that travel time can be thinking time, can be reading time, can be the rare gift of uninterrupted hours for the kind of deep engagement weight of her satchel speaks to preparation, to someone who approaches even pleasure travel as opportunity for growth, for learning, for the kind of productive solitude that allows thoughts to develop, allows ideas to mature, allows the scattered fragments of daily experience to settle into coherent understanding, into wisdom, into the particular satisfaction that comes from using travel time, not just for movement through space, but for movement through consciousness, through understanding, through the ongoing work of becoming more than one was before the journey began. A different approach, different energy. Daniel moves with the fluid grace of someone accustomed to motion, to change, to the particular freedom that comes from traveling light, from carrying only what proves essential, from learning to find home, not in accumulated possessions, but in adaptability, in openness, in the willingness to let each new environment provide what it offers, rather than demanding that it conform to predetermined expectations, predetermined needs, predetermined definitions of comfort and security. His backpack bears the honest wear of extensive use, fabric softened by countless journeys, straps shaped by the particular weight distribution that experienced travelers learn to achieve, zippers that move smoothly because they have been opened and closed thousands of times, creating the kind of familiarity that allows focus to shift from equipment management to experience appreciation, from logistical concerns to emotional availability, from survival mode to growth mode. The travel mug in his hand suggests someone who has learned to create small comforts within larger adventures, who understands that self-care during travel enhances rather than diminishes the experience, who has discovered that maintaining certain routines, certain small pleasures, certain familiar anchors allows greater openness to unfamiliar experiences, unfamiliar people, unfamiliar possibilities that might otherwise feel too threatening, too overwhelming, too far outside established comfort zones to be safely explored. The moment of stepping from platform to train represents more than simple movement, represents transition from one state of being to another, from individual traveler to member of temporary community, from person with fixed identity to person open to discovery, to change, to the particular kind of transformation that happens when people allow themselves to be carried away from familiar contexts, familiar roles, familiar limitations into the fluid space where new possibilities can emerge. The conductor's voice carries the authority of someone who has overseen countless such transitions, countless journeys, countless moments when strangers become fellow travelers, when individual stories become part of larger narrative about human connection, human windows create the illusion of traveling through space itself, where the boundary between interior and exterior becomes permeable, where passengers can feel simultaneously protected and exposed, safe within the train's embrace, while fully aware of the vast world rushing past, the landscapes being conquered, the distances being erased through mechanical miracle and human engineering. Their assigned seats position them as neighbors, as fellow observers, as companions for the journey, whether they choose active companionship or merely parallel solitude. The armrest between them becomes potential bridge, potential barrier, potential site of negotiation about personal space, about social interaction, about the delicate balance between privacy and connection that train travel requires, that successful human relationships require, that meaningful encounters always require. The observation car fills slowly with other passengers, other travelers seeking the particular pleasure of watching the world slide past, of feeling motion without effort, of experiencing the meditative quality that comes from sustained observation of changing landscapes, changing light conditions, changing weather patterns. The collective appreciation for this shared experience creates a subtle sense of community, of fellowship, of recognition that some pleasures are enhanced by company, by witness, by the knowledge that others are sharing the wonder, the beauty, the temporary transcendence of ordinary concerns. The train lurches gently into motion, creating the small disruptions, the minor adjustments, the brief moments of imbalance that characterize the beginning of all journeys, all adventures, all transitions from stillness to movement, from certainty to possibility. The lurch causes Evelyn's elbow to bump against Daniel's notebook, creating accidental contact, accidental awareness of each other's presence, accidental opportunity for interaction that might otherwise have required more deliberate courage, more conscious choice, more risk of rejection or awkwardness. Her apology comes naturally, reflexively, demonstrating the kind of consideration that marks people who move through the world with awareness of their impact on others, with respect for others' space, others' activities, others' right to privacy and concentration. His response reveals humor, reveals perspective, reveals the particular generosity that some people bring to minor disruptions, to small inconveniences, to the inevitable friction that occurs when humans share space, share resources, share the journey through life. This small exchange opens door to larger conversation, creates permission for interaction, establishes the tone of mutual respect and gentle humor that allows strangers to explore compatibility, to discover shared interests, to begin the delicate dance of revelation and response that characterizes successful human connection. The notebook itself becomes conversation starter, becomes evidence of his writing, his observation, his engagement with the world through words, through careful attention, through the desire to capture and preserve experience in forms that can be shared, that can create bridges between individual consciousness and collective understanding. They arrange themselves for the long journey, opening books, uncapping pens, establishing the personal territories within shared space, suggestion, from recognizable geography to mysterious territory, from familiar countryside to alien planet sliding past at impossible speed. The transformation mirrors what happens to passengers during night train journeys, how darkness changes perspective, changes possibilities, changes the normal rules of social interaction. Lights begin appearing in the distance, farmhouse windows glowing like scattered jewels, small towns reduced to clusters of illumination, cities becoming galaxy formations that rise and fall as the train passes through their gravitational fields. Each light represents life, represents people choosing wakefulness or sleep, represents stories unfolding in parallel to their own, represents the vast network of human experience that continues regardless of individual awareness, individual participation, individual understanding. The train car itself becomes more intimate as darkness deepens, as exterior views become less detailed, as attention naturally turns inward, toward fellow passengers, toward conversation, toward the particular magic that happens when people find themselves suspended together in moving capsule between departure and destination, between past and future, between who they were when they boarded and who they might become by journey's end. Their exchange about destinations reveals compatibility of purpose, similar willingness to commit to long journey, to extended experience, to the particular adventure that night train travel represents. The discovery that they share the same ultimate destination creates sense of partnership, of fellowship, of being fellow pilgrims on similar path, even though their reasons for travel, their plans upon arrival, their entire life contexts remain unknown, unexplored, full of potential for discovery. The ease with which words flow between them suggests natural compatibility, suggests similar rhythms of thought and expression, suggests the kind of communication style that allows ideas to develop through dialogue rather than being blocked by misunderstanding, by conflicting approaches to conversation, by the social friction that sometimes prevents strangers from moving beyond surface politeness toward genuine exchange of thoughts, feelings, perspectives. Her smile lingers, his responses encourage. The train's rhythm provides natural pacing for their developing conversation, allows pauses for consideration, for appreciation, for the kind of thoughtful exchange that builds understanding gradually rather than demanding immediate intimacy, immediate revelation, immediate commitment to connection that might prove unsustainable once the special circumstances of train travel conclude, once ordinary life reasserts its demands, its distractions, its competing priorities, as other passengers settle into sleep, as the car grows quieter, as the special atmosphere of night travel fully establishes itself. They drift naturally toward the lounge area, toward the space designed for those who choose wakefulness, who choose engagement with the journey itself rather than escape through uncomfortable unguarded moments, reveals artistic sensibility, reveals appreciation for authentic human expression, reveals understanding that posed perfection often conceals more than it reveals. The truth appears in undefended moments, in transitions, in the spaces between official presentations of self. His approach to art suggests someone who pays attention, who values authenticity, who seeks to preserve and share the fleeting moments that make life beautiful, meaningful, worth documenting for future appreciation. Evelyn's historical research, her fascination with stories that slipped through official records, demonstrates similar appreciation for overlooked truth, for the human experiences that don't make headlines but make up the actual texture of lived experience. Her work suggests someone who understands that meaning often hides in details, in small stories, in the experiences of ordinary people living extraordinary internal lives, creating extraordinary moments of connection, love, growth that official history rarely records, but that constitute the actual substance of human experience. Their professional interests reveal compatible values, compatible approaches to the world, compatible understanding that surface appearances often mislead, that deeper truth requires patient attention, careful observation, willingness to look beyond obvious explanations toward more complex, more nuanced, more complete understanding of how humans actually experience life, how they create meaning, how they find connection across all the apparent barriers that seem to separate individual consciousness from collective understanding, collective appreciation, collective celebration of what makes existence worthwhile. They return to their original seats, carrying the warmth of successful conversation, of discovered compatibility, of growing attraction that no longer needs to hide behind purely intellectual exchange, purely professional discussion, purely casual acquaintance. The shared armrest between them becomes charged with possibility, becomes site of potential contact, potential intimacy, potential physical expression of emotional connection that has been developing through words, through ideas, through the particular chemistry that emerges when compatible minds discover each other. Neither opens book or notebook now, both recognizing that this phase of the journey requires different kind of attention, different kind of presence, different kind of openness to whatever might develop when two people stop hiding behind activities, behind distractions, behind the protective barriers that usually prevent strangers from becoming intimate, from becoming vulnerable, from becoming available to the kind of connection that changes insisting on complete self-sufficiency. Daniel's promise to keep watch, to remain present, to provide the security that allows rest, demonstrates the particular generosity that marks successful partnerships, successful connections, successful human relationships. His offer suggests someone who understands that care involves attention, involves presence, involves willingness to prioritize another's needs, another's comfort, another's well-being, even at personal cost, even when reciprocation remains uncertain, even when the relationship itself remains undefined, unexplored, full of potential but not yet committed to specific outcomes. Past midnight, the observation car reaches its quietest, most intimate state. Most passengers sleep, leaving them suspended in the moving sanctuary, in the space between destinations where normal rules, normal constraints, normal social expectations lose their power, where people can follow authentic impulses, authentic attractions, authentic recognition of compatibility without fear of consequence, without pressure for immediate decision about future, without obligation to define or limit what develops naturally, organically, beautifully, in its own time. Their hands finally make contact, fingers brushing with deliberate gentleness, with conscious choice, with mutual recognition that this moment represents transition from casual acquaintance to intentional intimacy, from parallel travel to shared journey, from individual experience to collective adventure. The contact sends electricity through both, confirmation of attraction, confirmation of compatibility, confirmation that what has been building through conversation, through shared silence, through mutual appreciation, can now be expressed through touch, through closeness, through the particular intimacy that physical contact creates. When she turns toward him, when their eyes meet, the question and answer happen simultaneously. The invitation and acceptance occur in a single moment of mutual recognition, mutual desire, mutual willingness to risk vulnerability, to risk disappointment, to risk the exposure that comes with allowing another person to matter, to influence mood, to create happiness or sadness through their response, their presence, their care or indifference. The risk feels worthwhile because the potential reward, the potential connection, the potential joy seems equal to the danger. Daniel's approach carries the reverence appropriate to significant moments, to experiences that will be remembered, that will become reference points for future consideration of what constitutes meaningful connection, meaningful intimacy, meaningful human encounter. His slowness demonstrates respect for her autonomy, for her right to change her mind, for her need to feel safe, to feel cherished rather than conquered, to feel appreciated rather than simply desired, to feel seen as complete person rather than mere object of attraction. Their lips meet with a gentleness that characterizes first kisses between people who already respect each other, already appreciate each other, already recognize potential for lasting connection rather than temporary pleasure. The kiss carries tenderness, carries promise, carries the particular sweetness that emerges when physical intimacy grows from emotional intimacy, from intellectual compatibility, from the slow building of trust, appreciation, genuine affection that makes touch expression of care rather than mere gratification. Outside, the night continues rushing past, landscapes dissolving and distances being conquered by mechanical precision and human engineering, but inside their small space, time slows, attention focuses, the world reduces to immediate sensation, to warmth of lips, to softness of skin, to breath mingling, to heartbeats synchronizing, to the particular magic that occurs when two people discover they can create together something more beautiful than either could create alone, something more satisfying than individual pleasure, something more meaningful than casual encounter. The kiss deepens naturally, organically, without pressure or demand, but with mutual desire for closer connection, for more complete expression of the attraction that has been building throughout their evening together. Her small sound of contentment, of appreciation, of welcome indicates that touch is enhancing rather than overwhelming, is expressing rather than demanding, is creating safety rather than vulnerability, creating joy rather than obligation, creating connection rather than separation through premature intimacy. Their joined hands anchor them, provide stability within the moving train, provide certainty within the uncertainty of new relationship, provide physical connection that supports emotional intimacy rather than replacing it. Their fingers intertwine with a natural ease that suggests compatibility of more than intellectual interests, suggests physical comfort, suggests the kind of fundamental harmony that makes partnership possible, makes lasting connection achievable, makes mutual support and care sustainable over time, across challenges, through the inevitable difficulties that test all human relationships, when they separate, when breathing becomes necessary, when the intensity requires moment of integration, of processing, of allowing hearts and minds to catch up with physical experience. Their foreheads remain touching, their breath continues mingling, their connection continues through proximity, through choice to remain close, through mutual reluctance to return to individual space, individual awareness, individual limitation, when shared consciousness feels so much richer, so much more satisfying, so much more complete. Evelyn's whispered comment about maybe being able to sleep now acknowledges what has shifted, what has been resolved, what security has been established through successful intimacy, through confirmed attraction, through the particular peace that comes from knowing that interest is mutual, that connection is real, that what felt like possibility has proven to be actuality. Her comment also demonstrates trust, demonstrates willingness to be vulnerable, to surrender control, to allow sleep in his presence, in his care, under his protection. Daniel's promise to keep watch completes the circuit of care, of mutual support, of partnership that has emerged from their night together. His commitment to her safety, to her comfort, to her well-being, creates the foundation upon which deeper relationship can be built, can be explored, can be allowed to develop according to its own internal logic rather than external pressure, external timeline, external expectations about how relationships should progress, should be defined, should commit to specific outcomes before sufficient exploration has occurred. Their continuing closeness, their continuing physical contact, They settle back into traveling position, but everything is changed. Their hands remain joined. Their attention remains focused on each other, rather than external entertainment, external distraction, external escape from the particular intensity that develops when people allow themselves to be fully present with each other, fully available to each other, fully committed to discovering what kind of connection they can create together through mutual attention, mutual care, mutual willingness to prioritize relationship over individual convenience, individual preference, individual resistance to the vulnerability that intimacy requires. Outside, the countryside continues its mysterious passage, rivers gleaming silver in moonlight, forests reduced to dark suggestions, mountains sketched in outline against a starry sky. The external journey mirrors internal journey, mirrors the movement from individual experience toward shared experience, from stranger status toward intimate partnership, from uncertainty toward growing confidence in mutual compatibility, mutual attraction, mutual potential for creating together something more satisfying than either could create alone. The train carries them toward the coast, toward their shared destination, but they already understand that geography has become secondary to connection, that arrival will not conclude their story, but transform it, that what began as travel convenience has become emotional necessity, has become the foundation for whatever develops next, whatever they choose to build together, whatever they discover they can create through continued attention, continued care, continued commitment to mutual growth, mutual support, mutual celebration of what makes life worth living, worth sharing, worth the risk of vulnerability that all meaningful relationships require. Under starlight filtered through clouds, under the steady rhythm of wheels against rails, under the protection of the train's warm embrace, love announces itself quietly, naturally, without drama, but with certainty, without hurry, but with confidence, without demand, but with invitation to whatever comes next, whatever they choose to explore together, whatever grows from this night of discovery, recognition, successful connection between compatible souls seeking similar understanding, similar appreciation, similar commitment to living fully rather than safely, to choosing connection over protection, to choosing vulnerability over invulnerability when the potential for joy outweighs the risk of disappointment. The train hums onward, carrying them toward dawn, toward arrival, toward the beginning of whatever story they will write together through accumulated choices, accumulated experiences, accumulated recognition of each other's value, each other's contribution to their individual happiness while creating shared happiness that transcends what either could achieve alone. The night train has done its work, has provided the context, the timing, the circumstances that allowed two strangers to discover they need not remain strangers, that compatibility exists, that connection is possible, that love can begin quietly, naturally, beautifully, when people remain open to possibility, remain willing to risk, remain committed to recognizing and nurturing what proves precious when it appears, unexpected but welcome, surprising but right, destined